there's like a mush gap here, like a cognitive mush gap that maybe, yes, like just like children born as digital natives think differently than those of us who like spent our childhoods analog and then came into digital technology. Like, yeah, there's going to be some sort of like just change in cognitive mapping because AI is a part of your integrated life from the beginning. But at this mush gap, TM, trademarked. But I just like, it's people like I told you I could get into a rabbit hole here. It's like the people studying to become doctors that I'm going to need when I'm on my deathbed, right? You know, like those are the people who are currently using AI to cheat in college.
Yeah.
Like that's concerning to me. And the people who we need to hire and bring into the workforce are the people who are like, why should I have to learn how to write a resume or interview for a job or explain my skills in a coherent way?
Building great experiences, revolutionize your business. Building great experiences, innovative strategies. Building great experiences, elevate for your customers. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Building Great Experiences podcast. I'm Drew, and with me I have my awesome friend, Jenn Grabenstetter. We worked together. She was a client before, and then I had the fortune of luring her over and coming to a team that we were part of at previous employer, Slalom, and then we've just continued to hang out and chat, and she's just a good friend of mine. Today, we're going to be covering some interesting things. Jenn's a marketer, so it's going to be marketing themed. And I'll let her introduce herself in a second. But we're going to be talking about trends that aren't AI. We're going to be talking about emerging trends that also are not AI. And then we're going to be talking about, things that are exciting about AI and then maybe some existential fears. So, Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am testing to see how long you can go without bringing up AI. So we'll see.
Yeah, right.
We'll see how far we can
get. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe 30 minutes. We'll see.
All right. Okay. I can believe that.
All right. Well, so I think as you've seen on the show before, I love to start with stories. Love to hear. I think I know your origin story, but maybe tell me some stuff I haven't heard before, and also for folks who are listening, like what do they need to know about you?
Well, I thought I was going to be, when I was in college, I was convinced I was going to be a political speechwriter. That was my dream job. And I think that was really about wanting to use words to compel people, to inspire them, to lift them up, But I didn't have, the fortitude for politics. And so journalism was a solid second bet. So the first decade or so of my career, I was a journalist. I did some news reporting, but mostly culture and art and fashion and travel and things like that. It sounds like a really great career. It looks like one in movies and television, but it doesn't pay very much. And also there's really no room to move up or out. It's just sort of, you do the same thing over and over again. And you do get to write, you do get to create cool stuff and work with amazing artists and people. But eventually I felt like I wanted to challenge my brain in other ways. And so I went into corporate side work. I was at CEB Gartner for about 5 years. I did communications and change management, and then fell into marketing. I got a role that was called a communications leadership role, but it included marcoms and sales enablement and all these other sort of commercial enabling things. That was my foray into marketing. And then, whoops, it's been another decade plus. And now that's my deal. I do marketing, brand, MarTech, experience tech, and experience strategy.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's funny. I also almost got into politics.
I feel like maybe there's still a chance you will. I wouldn't rule that out for you.
I don't know. We'll see. I was in college. I don't know. Like most kids, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life, and I was very fascinated, as most kind of misfit youth were at the time, in Latin American politics and Che Guevara and all that kind of stuff. Considered myself some form of revolutionary or whatever. And then as I got further along, I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not for me. So,
But you're still a renegade. So the spirit is still
the spirit
there.
is still alive. Yeah,
Yes, I
that's
like
right.
that.
Well, cool. So I would love to hear your take on trends
Yeah.
that are not AI, and we're not talking
We're
about
not
AI.
talking about AI.
Yeah.
No.
Just in general about like, where do you see, you work with a lot of organizations and
Yeah.
a lot of industries, you see a lot of stuff. Where are you seeing people place bets? What are some of the things that you're seeing kind of perk up across the board?
Yeah. Okay, a couple things. One is despite the presence of AI and its potential, a lot of teams that I'm working with, like the things we're working on are just like classic, like operational problems.
Mm.
Like the word transformation got massively overused, but people are still transforming. They're going through organizational evolutions, operational evolutions. They're still trying to get incrementally better at how they do work and how they work together.
Mhm.
And there's still lots of problems with that. One of my favorites that is sort of a classic tale as old as time is that the MarTech boom and experience tech boom that we've been in for the last, I guess, almost decade now, that has exacerbated a relationship between marketing and tech teams or IT teams that was never really strong to begin with. And then this huge set of technology came along that marketers were ill-equipped to handle by themselves, and technology teams were not necessarily functionally prepared to be great partners in that because there was a lot of new technology. Everyone's grown. They've grown closer together. Marketers have learned how to speak more tech, and tech people have learned how to speak more customer. But it's still a pretty big chasm. And I think like there's a growing area of talent in the people who can be fluent across both. They can speak customer and business objective and marketing, and then they can also like translate into the tech requirements and tech process. If you are one of those people, you are a unicorn, and you should leverage that because it's still a skill gap in most organizations that I'm seeing. So, and then just a lot of people just trying to do work better, like trying to do faster, trying to adapt faster. Like things are not getting less crazy. And so all teams are just trying to figure out how they can become more responsive, more adaptive, pivot faster, and not be the thing that is slowing down growth, not be the bottleneck. So just a lot of people eagerly trying to do work better. That's the thing. That's the number one thing. And then the second one that I still see, personalization. So that's, again, like a major buzzword. You would think by now, as much as we've been talking about it, like somebody would have cracked it. But it remains very elusive for most companies, even very large, very wealthy companies. Some B2C companies have gotten farther along, but it's still a tricky art and science balance. And I think AI has just poured fuel on that fire, made it a little bit more chaotic, or in some cases, like made it such that people who had maybe some sparking embers have been able to get like a tiny flame going. But personalization just still remains this like big potential that like people can't seem to quite wrap their arms around. And so we spend a lot of time when we're advising people trying to help them find different ways to like bite off that apple that will help them just get a little further in their potential. So building personalization around like moments in someone's life or in their life cycle, as opposed to trying to personalize by an infinite array of data points. Just trying to like narrow it in on like something hyper, something micro, get that right, and then do more of them, as opposed to trying to personalize the ocean. And I think I don't know that that's the answer, but it's a better answer than we've been seeing before that. And then I have one more, and then I'm desperate for your thoughts. You and I have talked about this a lot. I've written about this. Like digital experience debt is like accumulating. People made a lot of stuff like really fast. And there was, big investments in, AEM, and everyone redid their website and everyone built a bunch of apps. And then the pandemic, like everyone built more stuff on top of that to like try to create, more touchless interactions. Those things, even if you made them on the latter end of that curve, are 5 years old now. So we're seeing people like, oh, we need to redo our website, or, oh, we need to redo that. There's just like old properties and stuff that maybe hasn't been touched, hasn't been updated, hasn't been governed in a long time. And that just continues to grow while people are still building and making new stuff. And I think that takes a toll on your internal resources. It takes a toll on the people who are supposed to upkeep and maintenance those experiences. And like experience maintenance is not something like anyone like truly signed up for. Everyone wants to do like the next new thing, not like go back and weed the garden over and over again. So I think with the economy being a little uncertain at the moment, that might put a bit of a pause on new stuff. And so maybe reinvesting some of that energy into paying down experience debt is wise. Also, if consumers and business buyers are going to be a little bit more choosy with their dollars, like making sure that you don't have a bunch of poor experiences out there that could cause them to go elsewhere. Yeah. Now is the time to like clean out your closet, groom your garden, like get things tight, because we will eventually start making new stuff again and potentially making it faster because of, AI. But yeah, you can't forget about all the debt that you're accruing behind the scenes and some of those old things that aren't even that old, but time moves fast.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's funny, the transformation thing, right? Like it's kind of an ugly, dirty word now. Nobody wants to say it, but it's like,
it's like an eye rolly word.
Yeah, like
we're doing a transformation. Yeah.
Like, okay, here we go again. I think that the people process stuff is always hard, and that's always going to continue to be a pain point. To be honest, like I'm a big, obviously, techno optimist on the AI stuff, but I think that the people are going to be the ones that are impeding the ability to roll out things like hyper personalization or to improve how the experience is. Like people just are slow and resistant to change. I think one of the patterns that I've seen across the board that's like impacting organizations is there's been this combination of a brain drain. So you've had like layoffs and cutbacks, and then you've had like there's the great resignation over the last couple of years and all these things. So you've had people moving all over the place, and then you're talking to these organizations and it's like they have like organizational amnesia. They just forget everything, and you're like, you solved this.
Yeah.
Like, why are you talking about this again? So there's this kind of this funny, like, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Like, we're going to transform. I go, oh, we lost
transform
all.
Back.
Yeah. Right. And so I think that's a pattern. And I think the organizations that, in spite of the economic uncertainty, in spite of some of these, like, maybe setbacks, decide to make investments for the long term and to say, all right, we're going to weather the storm. We're going to, tackle the experience debt. We're going to make incremental improvements to personalization. We're going to take the, like, priority off of like short-term gains to more of these longer term bets that are going to, we believe, pay dividends in the long run. Obviously publicly traded companies, it's a little bit harder because there are people who are banging on the door telling me, make me more money.
It would be so nice if they would just not live and die by the current quarter.
I know.
It would solve a lot of problems,
it
honestly.
would. I know. Well, and I think it, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to get slices, but like mid-sized companies who are, a little bit leaner, more nimble, and are able to make those
from that panic. Yeah.
Right. They can make longer term investments. Agreed. I think are the ones that are going to be successful over this next couple of years.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned the personalization thing. I think it's funny. Like that's also feels like a very like buzzy buzzword.
Oh yeah.
I
almost feel like embarrassed bringing it up, but like everyone's trying to do it in their own way.
Yep.
But it's almost like there's too much opportunity. Like there's so many like personalized based on what, for whom, and what channels. What matters to experience. And I think that's the part that people lose sight of is like you don't have to personalize every touch point.
Yep.
Find like one moment that's important.
What matters
to whatever it is, loyalty, conversion, whatever, and like focus on that one.
Yep.
That's the one where it's going to matter that someone felt like you saw them, heard them, talk to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think to that point, there's also like this funny thing where it's like shiny object syndrome, right? Executives like, we need hyper personalization. That's
Like,
the
do you
way.
even know what that is?
Right. And you're like, you don't even like email your customer to let them know like start with the basics,
Yeah.
man. Like don't go you're going way out here. Just
Yeah.
do the simple stuff. Like to your point, like identify the moments in the journey that are like the most critical to communicate with your customer. Find the challenges that your employees are facing. Like actually like talk to your employees. Side note, like, hey, employees who are actually talking to the customer, like, what is the problem?
Yeah.
And they're like, they'll tell you. Like, they'll be like, hey, customers actually just really want our bathrooms to be clean. We should fix that problem. Like
It's the number one complaint.
yeah, instead of being like hyper personalization,
Yeah.
like people, I think customers, they're still, we kind of add this like funny word like customer.
Yeah.
And we forget that they're like
They're just
still
people.
just regular human beings.
Also, where I know that it seems like consumer expectations do continue to rise. That is a fact.
Right.
But we're also still delighted by some like pretty easy shit. Like,
Yeah, right.
like it's not
super,
all,
yeah,
like
not.
we still have some low expectations for some things. And
Yeah.
like if you just meet that, we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I always say that like I work with a lot of financial services companies, and like a lot of them are trying to be on the leading edge of digital experiences for customers and things like that. And I'm like, honestly, like nothing will ever be cooler than being able to take a picture of a check and deposit it using my phone. Like you could have quit then.
Yeah.
Like that was like, I was so impressed, and I remain impressed to this day.
You're like, I don't have to put in the tube, and
I don't have to drive to the bank. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's some things that are just like
Yep.
not that hard.
Yep.
And you just do the simple things and do them well.
Yep.
That still has a place. You don't have to get dazzled by the bright lights.
Yeah, I think to that point, there's this interesting thing I've been kind of like pondering a lot, which is if you look at the different industries and then you look at like maturity, there's like industries have a maturity curve, and then you have like companies within each industry are on a maturity curve. And some folks, they kind of like they're comparing themselves from like, we are in X industry and we need to be like the disruptors of this industry. And you're like, your industry as a whole is behind. Like healthcare, for example.
Yeah.
Like we're working with a healthcare company right now. And like, it's funny because just doing like, have signage.
Yeah.
Tell people, like, let people know what happens when they go to your spot. Like simple stuff that like other industries have solved this a long time ago. But for healthcare, like, healthcare in America is like way.
You got a lot of low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Like just put signs up, tell people what's going on. So I think there's this like also this I've talked about this before, these like altitudes of experience that are important, and how you orchestrate across all of them. In addition, I think you have to like layer in depending on what industry you're in, you might be in a lagging industry like a manufacturing, like a healthcare, like a home services, that, really you just need to do what the retail, CPG, banking.
We're doing 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like just do those things now to start with. And like consumers will be delighted because, to your point, they're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Because
like,
they've set that bar so permanently low for your industry that you can delight them much more easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just because you go for something at a higher experience altitude, like you go for something big and modern, does not mean that by achieving it or even attempting it, you've somehow magically also like caught up on all the things that that your industry did not do over the last 20 years. So we see that a lot where people are like, oh, well, we're going to have some sort of like, I don't know, like virtual chat or something. And you're like, okay, you're reaching for the stars a bit, but okay. But then like what it can do is limited. The actual like service being rendered on the other end is like, there's no communication. And so like, maybe yes, this virtual agent powered by AI, can make this appointment for you or answer these questions for you. But the rest of your experience that you're still being delivered by the way that you've always done it is not going to live up to that flashy thing that you were able to or excited to invest in. So
it just becomes a veneer, right? Like it's like you put a nice coat of paint with the chatbot or whatever, but then your employees are still mad. They're not able to service a customer the way that they need to be serviced. Customers are like, I don't want your stupid chatbot. Make the bathrooms clean. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, simple stuff.
There was a when you and I met and I was working at a global packaging company, we were working on like the the modern e-commerce facing
Mm-hmm.
platform that was going to interact with customers. And we were asked, like, can we put like shipping progress, like some sort of like progress bar, like your order
Mm-hmm.
has been received, your order has been packed, your
Pizza
order has been
tracker
shipped,
kind of thing.
basic
Yeah.
e-commerce stuff. And we're like, yeah, that's actually, we can put that in the design. That's out of the box capability for this platform, whatever. The ability for the like supply chain to tell us that something has been packed or shipped or is on the truck or on the way, it was impossible. And I was like, how can this be? It's 2023. Like, how is that possible?
Yep.
But it was because like they were still doing paper manifests. Like they were putting boxes on a truck and checking it off on paper. And then eventually someone was going over to a terminal and like, marking what had been shipped out that day. But that was not a real-time scanning process. That was a manual person with a piece of paper. And so the data lag was going to be such that by the time we told you it had shipped, it might be at your door. Like it
Yeah,
was
right.
not gonna,
Yeah.
it was not gonna be real time. And that was just mind-boggling to me that like we wanted to do e-commerce. We wanted to get to that level, but like nothing else was built to actually deliver on that promise. And so you're really out on a limb because you're creating an expectation with customers that you're not gonna actually live up to. So
Right. And then they get all like,
don't do that.
yeah,
That's
where's my
advice.
stuff? Well, yeah, right.
Uh,
Well, cool. So we've covered a lot of ground. I would love to move into kind of emerging trends. Like, what are
Yeah.
you seeing on the horizon? What's coming up next that's not AI? And where do you think people should be making bets for the future?
So the thing I'm expecting to hear more about, and I love talking about, and I think we're going to be talking about it more, is the concept of loyalty.
Mhm.
I think like B2C has really owned that conversation for a long time. Like the concept of B2B loyalty has always been lagging far behind, or not even really a thing in many cases. But like, even if we're not using the word loyalty, a lot of people are talking about loyalty more. Companies and customers and industries that never really thought about like their latter stages of the customer life cycle, either because those customers just never left and they didn't have to worry about it and now they do, or because they only ever worried about sort of transaction and they didn't actually care for those post-purchase like moments. But like this concept of like, what is loyalty? How do you know someone's loyal? How do you build loyalty? Like, I think that's coming back into vogue, if you will, because people are losing customers, like customer churn. Like if you didn't have your eye on the ball, like people will leave. They will find there will be a disruptor. There will be something that's easier or more interesting or more advantageous, and they don't feel loyal to you, brands and businesses alike. And so I think that was like outside of some of the B2C sector that was just ignored for a long time, and now you're paying the price because you have not been building loyalty. And then there's also on the consumer side what I would consider like just really disintermediated loyalty, like loyalty to a lot of things. And I think that comes from like these very hype cycles of trends. Like, social media has driven that. Like people are very passionate about a brand and then it's dead. Like it's like everyone's all in on Stanley and then it's a Wallace. Like it's like very intense brand loyalty, but for like a very short amount of time. And I think that framework of like sort of hyper loyalty but not extended long-term repeatable loyalty is an interesting trend to watch. And then I think that's also happening in other industries that are less physical consumer brand based, where I'll use financial services as an example. I have disintermediated loyalty, meaning I get financial services from probably, I'm going to call it at least 10 different service providers between credit cards, banks, mortgages, car loans. I don't care about any of them. And I didn't even truly care that much maybe when I made the choice to select one over the other. It was probably about a percentage discount or a price or just like who was in front of me or what seemed easiest or whatever. And so they all would like me to feel loyal to them, I'm sure. But I don't actually, because I have spread my loyalty around like what bank I care about across so many entities. And so as they start to like come to that like they need to maybe start building and engendering more long-term loyalty from people like me who are, you know, been customers for decades now and represent potential growth for them, or start building loyalty with younger generations to become more sticky and loyal with them over time. It's not going to be like just showing me more products. Like, oh, maybe you just didn't know that we offered car loans. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. You could have gotten your car loan through us. And I'm like, I didn't need to, nor want to. I don't desire that. So like that showing me more product, cross-selling me on product is not a loyalty driver. So I think there's new definitions of like what it takes to drive loyalty. And those are really fascinating because they are different by every industry. They're different by generation. Like that kind of strategy is super fun. And I think we're going to be doing a lot more of it.
Yeah. I love that. And I also, so it's funny, I've had this, this thing I've been like mulling over for a little bit, which is, I think like people's like loyalty and how people are loyal is different now. So this is like a weird example, but 50 years ago, if people were loyal to sports teams.
Yeah.
Like I'm a Steelers fan or I'm a Cowboys fan or whatever, right? And
I hope you didn't just alienate like a bunch of your audience.
Oh,
by
no,
picking those teams.
Side note, I don't care about football at all. I don't.
You're like, I was struggling to come up
I
with
was
two
like,
names back to back.
you know, like football, you know, sports ball. But anyway, there's been this paradigm shift where people are not loyal to teams; they're loyal to players. So, like, I played basketball when I was in high school, and you know, there was this kind of trending shift from like people were like loyal to Michael Jordan, not necessarily the Bulls. There was kind of this moving from like the 80s into the 90s. There was a kind of a transition, right? Or like another example is like Shaquille O'Neal, right? So he was I was a Shaq fan, funny enough, and like he was Magic, right? And then he went to the Lakers, and I was like, oh, cool, Lakers are cool. I don't know, and I'm using that anecdote because I think that's only accelerated in other industries, right? So you take that same concept of like, I'm not loyal to this brand or this team or this product or whatever. I'm loyal to this person or this sort of public figure who, whatever they care about, I care about, right? And so I think, you know, that's why you've seen the rise of the influencer. You've seen like the creator brands. You've seen these kinds of things. And I think what's going to be interesting to watch is like how the companies are already investing in like influencer marketing and content marketing and these kinds of things. But to see how brands start to actually like make bets like that, where they're like we're going to, you know, acquire quote unquote this influencer or this content creator person, and we're going to start to build around that. And then people are like, well, I really like so-and-so, like the points guy, Brian Kelly. He became this like really renowned credit card points sort of like persona, right? And like Red Ventures acquired that brand, which is literally named after the points guy. And like now he travels around the world and like basically rates travel experiences and stuff. And everybody, like people are fans of Brian.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know. I think
it's also like the intersection of my concept of loyalty and then like what I trust, what and who I trust.
Yeah.
And like at the Venn diagram of that is like potentially like really powerful influencers who like can build loyalty with a brand and also, but it's because they've earned your trust.
Right.
Theoretically earned it in like an organic way.
Right.
And now you trust them to tell you what else you should be doing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, so something else that I'm seeing that's kind of on the like, it's continuing to emerge and is adjacent to AI.
That's okay. We can head there.
Right.
We can go there next.
So it's this like super micro niche thing that you know, as a business or brand, you couldn't get that targeted at these like very, very, very small niches like you can now. And so there's this really interesting thing that's starting to emerge where businesses and brands are investing in like smaller communities that are like hyper loyal, hyper like dedicated to whatever it is, right? And like this is like a weird kind of example, but like gaming communities, right? Like people who are like, I love Fortnite. I am like all in on Fortnite, and they have these like little sort of like mini game. I play Fortnite with my kids, so this is why I'm coming over
Instead of
this.
watching football, I get it. Go
Yes, yes, yes.
ahead.
But there's these like little games within Fortnite that are created by creators,
Yeah.
and people are like die hard on these like niches, right? And kind of continue with the esports piece, you have like Twitch streams and
Mm-hmm.
brand deals and all these things, and so it's like you could have like a ravenous group of like 1,000 people who love this one small game within a game within a game
Mm-hmm.
that you're marketing to, and like you can actually target those people in a
Mm-hmm.
more effective way and be part of that, be at the nexus of that community
Mm-hmm.
or that niche. And immediately if you're associated with that, like loyalty goes through the roof, because now you're like, these 1,000 people like absolutely love us because we're directly connected to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That kind of, I think, okay, we'll get into AI for a second. One of the things I'm really bullish about is like people have had so much data for so long, and like there's been a lot of like paralysis about like what even to do with it. Like data strategy is like a big boondoggle, right? Like what do we actually care about? What's extraneous? How do we do like data driven thinking and decisioning, and like who do we target and all this kind of stuff?
Right.
It's like you have too much and you can't see the forest for the trees. The fact that you can sort of let the bots like look for you and tell you what is important and what maybe to act on, and surface some of those interesting signals or niche audiences and things like that. I find that really exciting for marketers because and there's different kinds of intent signals or trust signals or like interest signals that do not come from traditional lead sources or traditional even like digital sources. Like there are people out there living lives, buying things, doing things that make them perfect for your message or your brand. And it's been hard to find them because you're looking at them through traditional sort of funnel lenses or demographic lenses. And like you actually need to know the like very discrete Venn diagram of people who like go to live music concerts, drive Honda CRV hybrids, and like also like enjoy organic food. And like that's actually who you need to target. So the idea of like more intelligent segmentation, thinking about hyper targeting, like finding those niche audiences, like that's a really cool opportunity that has been, I think, unlocked more with AI.
Yep. Well, and you think about where those watering holes are. So that little like sort of like micro niche that you just described, the constant challenge people, they're like, where are those people? Like, how do I get them? Right. And what's cool is now you can actually, using AI, you can do like deep research to like span across the entire internet and be like, hey, here is this really specific like school community or Slack community or like Reddit thread or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of these like you can do it at scale now, where it's instead used to have like, okay, marketing analyst so or army of analysts go scour the internet and find me like where these and like it just wouldn't make sense financially because you're like, we're not going to pay
no,
a
we
bunch
can
of
go
people.
up a couple levels, find a bigger group of people, and like that's more worth our time.
Right. But now you can essentially, you have an army of marketing analysts that you can be like, go scour the web and find us these micro niches that we can make bets on that would be like smaller in scale, but hyper loyal, hyper engaged, and like are more likely to like proliferate the brand and tell everybody they know, and like word of mouth spreads like wildfire, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, so it's that's what I get excited about. I was like, okay, there's all these like things that were just not scalable before that you can do at scale now.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. All right, a couple other things I'm excited about with AI.
Go
and
for
then I will talk to you about my deepest, darkest fears.
Yeah.
So I came up through B2B, and like the B2B selling journey, I mean, I was a part of like launching like the challenger selling model when we were at CEB, and ran B2B marketing teams for many years. So like I'm a B2B girl at heart. I've been waiting for a B2B like AI use case that like actually seemed cool to me. And I saw one recently where the hypothesis was like everyone thinks that AI is going to help companies sell, like do like, you know, do the actual selling, like having the agent bot or whatever on your website that explains all your products and complex solutions and like essentially like moves people through the consideration funnel. Sure, maybe. But what I heard, it was in an article, and then there was like a short demo, but it was the idea of like maybe the AI should actually help businesses buy. And like, usually when let's say you're trying to buy software, like there's this whole process, right? Like the vendor selection process. You got to go schedule all the demos, watch all the demos, do the RFQ, like all this kind of stuff. Like putting AI to work on that of like actually like maybe AI attends all the demos and asks all the questions and then summarizes all of the how did it meet our requirements and then sends a report back to, the team that's doing the consideration. Like maybe AI goes through all of the RFQs and like matches them against the criteria and then tells you who the two people are that you need to bring in. Like that, I mean, like the war between people trying to sell and people trying to buy and like procurement in the middle and all that kind of stuff is like the B2B, like tale as old as time. I'm really intrigued by how AI could be used to just completely disrupt the concept of how businesses buy things. Because that is a very antiquated and time consuming and like expensive process. And almost never do businesses feel great about the decision they made at the end of it, whether they procured services, platforms, it doesn't really matter. Like everyone's always like, I'm glad it's over, but I don't know that I feel like 100% about what we just bought. And this could at least speed up that process so you don't feel like you wasted 6 to 8 months trying to procure something. So I'm intrigued by that. Also saw a crazy demo the other day for just like the integration of AI into like some more basic consumer e-commerce experiences, like essentially having a personal shopping assistant sort of like with you, whether it's for things you like buying or things you have no experience buying. I renovated a house. I'm going to use air quotes because I did not do anything crazy, but we did some cosmetic renovations on our house. And I was on like one of those like builder supply websites, like trying to find like fixtures and like, and I remember being like really glad that when I picked my shower fixture, this website told me you need to buy these 3 other parts. Like you cannot install that shower fixture without these 3 other parts. When I went to like Lowe's and Home Depot websites to do the same thing, the recommendations engine said like people also bought and, might have had some similar products, but it did not literally say like, do not put this in your cart unless you've also bought this part, and this part that goes into the wall or whatever. And I think I would have felt much more confident trying to buy shower fixtures and light fixtures and things if there had been a knowledge agent that was like helping me, answering my questions, telling me what I need, putting those things in my cart, even matching me with service providers who could come next day and install them or whatever. So those areas where as a shopper, like I am out of my depth, like having really like empathetic AI as a part of that journey would be really interesting. And then there's also really cool implications for things I like buying and I know about. And it's about like helping me buy more, explore more, try things I wouldn't have otherwise tried. So I'm ready. Like in terms of like things I would love to see come into my life, I'm not a like proactive adopter, but if stuff like that started showing up, I would enjoy that as a consumer. And I think thinking carefully about like trusted, empathetic, like useful integration of that type of thing is very exciting to me. So those are things I'm genuinely excited about. And then we've already talked about one, which is sort of like it can find audiences for you that you could never have found on your own. And for a marketer, that's just gold. So I would love to see people break through the blocker of like our data's bad, our data's too big, we have too much, it's not good, it's not clean. Like AI doesn't care about that. Like it'll sort through the trash and like find things and then you have to validate them. But the fact that you've got this like data dump is not a problem.
Yeah.
The bots will go in there and scavenge.
Yeah. I think so. You said a couple things that I love and I agree. I love the idea of like in B2B land, not having to have the AI sell, but having it help you buy makes a ton of sense. And I also think that it's going to be interesting to watch like AI sell to AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're going to have, I think we're not terribly far away from a world where
you're getting into my fears.
Yeah. Business A and business B or human A, human B. You have your personal OS that's like working on your behalf and is like brokering, conversations and negotiating deals and executing on MSAs and like all of these things that like you just have these like intermediaries that are doing things for you. And I actually think like you were mentioning the like it would be great if it helped me pick out my shower fixtures and stuff. I have this theory that a lot of businesses right now are trying to build these like AI agents for their customers, and they're like investing lots of money into it, and they're spending a lot of energy trying to figure out like how do we make it so that when people come to our thing, we can like guide them. And I actually think it's not going to be that way. I think it's going to be people are going to like, so the promise that Apple is making is that Apple Intelligence, you will just be able to talk to Siri as your personal OS and she will just do shit for you. And like, if you kind of play that out a little bit further and you think about like what Google is doing and you think about OpenAI is doing and all these different things, people are not going to go to a business's chatbot that's influenced by that business and is essentially like going to try and guide you to buy more shit from them. They're going to trust their AI, OS, whatever, to be like, no, you go look at the website. You tell me what I need to do. You do it on my best, for my, best interests. And like, don't interface with their thing that's going to try to bias me towards whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Interesting.
It's kind of like, it's a different, like, I think I think there's going to be a lot of like virtual trash in the form of like AI agents that businesses are building that like no one uses, no one cares about, because they're just going to be like, Siri, go find me a thing. And then it'll go figure it out and then not actually.
Okay. So let me like take you back down to earth for like a quick second though. Remember when we were talking about like industries that are laggards?
Yeah.
So there's this, and you and I have encountered this with probably like multiple different clients and situations, including the one that I used to work at. But the concept of selling spare parts is like the biggest like money left on the table for so many manufacturing industries. Like they manufacture their own equipment. They want to be able to service their own equipment and sell you the replacement parts. But we're parts like, and consumer electronics and stuff too. Like if you've ever tried to replace like a small part for like your fridge or your like stove or something, it's virtually impossible because there's no searchable catalogs. You have a piece of a thing. You don't know what, it doesn't have a magic serial number like visible to you on the back. Like it's just really difficult. So like there are some use cases that I think like sure, if I can just ask Siri, like, what is this? Go buy it for me. But in a like larger corporate manufacturing sense, like being able to use camera recognition to look at the part, look at the machine, whatever it is, then on the other end, go through what is possibly decades worth of archived user manuals and technical manuals and things that were never digitized, and are going to have to be digitized in one big lump. Like, and finding and serving up like what someone needs to manage their operation and get that part replaced. Like, I would love it if we all could just like leapfrog past like small micro evolutions like that. But that would be game changing for an entire sector of our economy. Like, because there's just stuff breaks and you need a part, and it's just like really hard and really manual. So like, I would love to see some closer to the ground use cases like that, where it does help you buy something that was really hard to buy, or things where there is consumer uncertainty. But yes, if I got to the point where I've trusted my personal OS to make those recommendations for me, but sometimes people still, if they trust a brand, they do still want to know that that brand knows them and can make recommendations for them.
Right.
So again, back to like the concept, like what is loyalty? Like, who do I trust? Do I trust Siri or do I trust Sephora?
Right.
Like, so I right now I would say I trust Sephora. Ask me again in a couple years, I guess. We'll see if we are still here.
If we're still here. All right, now we're going down the existential. No, I think you're right. I mean, obviously, like I'm kind of like pointing at the sky and being like, yeah, But I do think I actually think it's not that far. Like, so the spare parts thing that you're talking about, at some point, all of these manufacturers are going to start like digitizing the sort of manual.
But you would have thought that would have happened by now.
I know.
It hasn't.
I know. And all it's going to take, like, frankly, is like once those things are digitized and like accessible to a large language model, then you can pretty much ask, take a picture of the screw, go find me and take care of it.
I'm excited for that to happen. I'm ready for that to be the current state
I
and
know,
not
I
the
know.
future state. Yeah.
Yeah, well, whoever's listening, start a business of scanning,
Right.
scanning all the
technical manuals.
yeah
Yeah, and
into
schematics
you
from
make,
like 1983.
yeah, and you'll crush it. Yeah,
Okay, so let's talk about my fear.
existential. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So there's a lot of things I'm afraid of. But I read all your stuff. You create a lot of content, I know, with the help of your AI army.
overlords. Yeah.
Yes. And here's the thing. Kind of goes back to like the concept of trust. And you and I've talked a little bit about this, but my thoughts have progressed. Like, I trust you to use these tools
Mm-hmm.
because I know that you are smart and you have done all this thinking yourself, and you've
Mm-hmm.
coded things yourself and built things yourself and written things yourself and thought things yourself. And so therefore you have like cognitively earned the right to like outsource some of that thinking so that your brain can go do the next thinking, right? Like, and when the AI like returns to you a product or a result, you are smart enough to look at it and know this is good, this is bad. I know how to improve this.
Mm-hmm.
I am really worried about people who are not starting from that place of ever having done the critical thinking themselves and have not cognitively earned the right to move on to the next level of human thought. And so I think about like, when computers replaced human computational mathematics, some of those mathematicians became programmers because their brains were good at problem solving and they were ready to be like, oh, okay, this thing I've always been good at and done, now a computer's going to do it. But I see a different problem that my brain could go solve.
Kind of like, I go to level 2 now.
But but isn't that because they also spent years doing really difficult mathematics? Like, so I'm worried about like the people who are coming to this in their mid-career, mid-age, like you've lived through the like, we lived in the non-internet era, we've lived in the internet era, like you've like
done
earned
it the hard way. Yeah.
You've done it the hard way, so you've like your brain can handle doing it the soft way and then like doing other
like
things
new
with
hard
it.
things. Yeah.
But I'm really worried that people are getting stupid and like and that if you've never like I saw something the other day you mentioned in one of your blog posts about or your articles about like having AI like rough out like some customer journeys for you. And I was like, why would you ever say that, Drew? Like, but it's because like you've done them yourself. So you know what a good one looks like. But what if you've never done one? Like same thing with graphic design. Like it's one thing if you are a graphic designer and you're like, yeah, I'm really happy to have this AI resize this image for me or change the backgrounds. But it's because I was in the trenches, man, like pulling stuff off of, stock photo and like manually going in and making these things or illustrating them from scratch. Like I've earned the right to have some of that work taken off my plate.
Yep.
So I'm worried about where we draw the line around like how much critical thinking you have to have done in your life to be a responsible user of AI.
Yeah.
And I heard an anecdote the other day from a friend of a friend who's hiring out of college graduates, like for an entry level position. Interviewed 10 candidates, let's say. Of those 10, 7 were clearly feeding the questions of the interview into AI and reading the responses.
Yep.
For their very first job interview out of college, which suggests to me also like what were they doing during college? Like how much of it AI was taking their tests and answering their homework. And like, I'm not saying that's everybody, but I am genuinely worried that the death of critical thinking is coming. And people, it would be one thing if you're like, okay, well, we're just outsourcing like this level of human thought, but everyone will evolve to I don't think they will, Drew. I don't think that everyone is going to evolve to that next level.
Yeah.
I think the people who will evolve to the next level are the people who came up through the like gradient of learning how to think critically and do the work themselves. That is my concern. Please respond.
Oh man, that's good. I like so it's funny. I've had a lot of conversations in the last 6 months with like fresh out of college people. And I've struggled with like, how do I mentor this person? Because I'm like, because to your point, like I have gone through the hard, I've like figured out how to think through these things. Like your point on like the journey map. Yeah. Like I've made so many journey maps and like you can kind of like know what good looks like once you've done it a bunch of times. It's the whole like, how do you master something? You just have to do it a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like the 10,000 hours or however, I don't know. There's all
But
the
not
theories.
ask a robot to do it a lot.
Right. Right. So I don't disagree with you that it's going to be interesting to see how humanity changes. However, I will say this to give you some optimism. It's not exactly the same, but it's in the same vein. I think if you look at like throughout history, there's always been like the existential dread of like, oh my God, the Industrial Revolution is happening. Like if all the machines are going to build the things, like what will happen to people, right? We figured it out. Like we were able to kind of like advance. Obviously there were career paths that completely died with the Industrial Revolution. You fast forward, like when the TV came out, all the radio people were like, right? And then like when when streaming came about, all the media companies were like, like there's
They
always
still are.
yeah, still panicking. Yeah. I also think like this is gonna be like another funny kind of metaphor. So when I was growing up, I liked playing video games, like playing the original Nintendo and all these things. And I remember at the time, like my dad did not understand, like, or my, just there was this general like playing video games is rotting your brain and like you're not gonna whatever. And like here I am, like I'm okay, like I'm doing the thing, and like it didn't eliminate my ability to think critically or kind of solve problems. I actually think it helped in a lot of ways. Playing video games was the thing that helped me actually learn a different way of approaching problems that like now looking at like my parents or older generations that I've, like they are like, how are you doing the thing? Like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. And it's like, well, there's like, it's been like since I was a kid. So I think that there's probably a world where humans using AI will start to solve problems in different ways and like won't necessarily have to have learned it the hard way because they will be like skipping some steps. Does that make sense? Like you will end up having.
I can get there. I can get to where you were saying. I don't know how long there's like an interim period though where people were like in the process of learning how to learn.
Yeah.
And then this like cheat code came along and it's like I'm just, I know people who are school teachers. They are battling this every day that people are like, oh, I can just answer my questions for me. It can help me do this interview so I don't have to actually learn how to interview for a job. Like there's just things that there's like a mush gap here, like a cognitive mush gap that maybe, yes, like just like children born as digital natives think differently than those of us who like spent our childhoods analog and then came into digital technology. Like, yeah, there's going to be some sort of like just change in cognitive mapping because AI is a part of your integrated life from the beginning. But at this mush gap, TM, trademarked. But I just like, it's people like I told you I could get into a rabbit hole here. It's like the people studying to become doctors that I'm going to need when I'm on my deathbed, right? Those are the people who are currently using AI to cheat in college.
Yeah.
Like that's concerning to me. And the people who we need to hire and bring into the workforce are the people who are like, why should I have to learn how to write a resume or interview for a job or explain my skills in a coherent way? I can have it write my cover letter, write my resume, and answer my interview questions for me. And then they get there and they can't string sentences together. Like it's just because they've never had to learn to write or speak for themselves. Like, so I'm not saying that over the arc of humanity we won't evolve, but like we live in this part of the arc.
Yeah.
And I'm scared.
I think, okay, so I agree. I'm not, there is was it mush?
A mush gap?
Mush gap, thank you, TM.
Cognitive mush gap.
Yeah, I think that there is a cognitive mush gap, like frankly, like pandemic also.
You just said it like it was a real phrase. Sorry, I appreciate you adopting it so
yes,
quickly. Carry on.
I'm going to use it. I'm going to just start using it. People will be like, where? I'm like, Jenn Grabenstetter, TM. So I think that here's the way that I'm thinking about it. I think that people will start to see like, okay, you have to think critically about how you're like connecting all the different tools to solve different problems. And that still requires a lot of like higher level thinking and strategic thought and like kind of reasoning skills, because you're going to be like, all right, like this is just a right now example, right, that I'm like working through with my team and like just teaching people. And it's like people are like, I'm in tool A and then there's tool B and C and D and E and F. How do we move this from here to here?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like, you have to like break it down in your head and be like, all right, I'm going to give this tool, like right now, one of the workflows that I've written about in the newsletter and I'm using a lot is like, I'm doing deep research with GPT to like tear down a particular problem statement or topic or whatever. I'm taking that and then I'm saying like, all right, now going through a series of prompts, I'm like beating it down into like, give me like product requirements, like let's go build a product and like help me break this down. Then like taking that and breaking it down into like prompts that I can actually give to another tool and like walking through that thing. Like I've had probably like, I don't know, a dozen people hit me up in the last like week and they were like, oh, I never thought about that. I never thought to ask AI to help me do the thing that I could give to another tool to make it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I think it's like, I think what we will see is folks who are entering the workforce, because they have these new capabilities that are available to them that we didn't have, they're going to start to stitch together different approaches to solving those problems. And they're still going to have to use like cognitive reasoning skills to like figure that out. Because you have to like be able to see like, okay, how am I going to architect this to get to the outcome? I just won't have to like execute on every single little thing. Does that, you know what I mean? Like that's how, I don't know. Again, I'm the techno optimist here.
Yeah.
I think I'm I much more look at it as a like, you know, glass half full, like rainbows and unicorns and stuff. But yeah, like there's risk to all that stuff. Who knows? Maybe the world ends in 2 years. Like we'll see. Well, I like to end on practical, tactical.
Oh, you
stuff.
don't like to end on existential threats.
Existential threat. And so, like with everything we said, the trends, you know, emerging and kind of current, what would you say are like 2-3 things that you're telling folks today? Like, hey, if you do nothing else, like do these 3 things.
I think a lot of it comes back down to like getting really clear on what builds and erodes trust with your audiences. That could be your employees, your customers, your prospects, whomever, your patients. Like trust is not as big and ephemeral as it seems. It's like very much like it is micro interaction driven. It is about word choice. It is about, to a degree, like I know you and I can show that I know you. Like it's very human, and it can be very small. Like it can be very small moments either break or build trust. And so I think like when people get really overwhelmed by everything they could be doing, like that's a really important place to come back and anchor. And a lot of brands, I think, are trying to redefine themselves, refresh their value proposition, like really like decide who they are in this like rapidly changing era. And like that's always where we try to start is like let's really break down like what makes people trust you, like your employees, what makes them trust you or not trust you, and like what makes your customers trust you. And I think that's just like it kind of quiets the noise and like makes it really important and simple. So focusing on what builds and breaks trust, I think, is very good to do. And then I'm interested to see, and I encourage people to think about the parts of any kind of customer journey, employee journey, whatever, like always look at the part that you've been ignoring. I think there's stuff that people put on autopilot or they just have like, it's never been a problem. And so they just like don't have any resources focused there. And so I love like mapping out like with my own hands. Thank you very much. I love mapping out like where are you spending time? Where have you made investments? Like where is your marketing energy going? Where is your customer service energy going? There's always like a couple like dark spots on the map that like ain't no blood running there. Like sometimes it's onboarding, sometimes it's renewals, sometimes it's like getting people to refer and like, grow your referral base, or like there's always like a part that you're just like not tending the farm at all, and the weeds have grown over, and like you're just hoping that you can continue to skip over that bit and everything will be fine. And so I think like, again, like experience debt is one way of looking at it, but also just sort of like over time there's been gaps in what you've been paying attention to and where you've put resources. And so rather than like always pouring into growth, top of funnel, more of this, more, cross-selling, like, but get them to buy more, like, look at places that you've just not tried to do anything, and maybe try a little something there and see if that has an impact, because I think that's where stuff leaks out. Trust leaks out, money leaks out, like loyalty leaks out. So I do like finding those untended spots. So if you're struggling with like what to do, especially maybe if your plans for the year are looking uncertain, or, you just don't quite know if you're going to be doing what you thought you were going to be doing, like those are great ways to like pivot your team, your time, your thinking, your strategy into places that will pay off.
Yeah, it's good. I think put simply, it's like close the back door.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people, they're like trying to open the front door wider, but it's like, hey man, you just close the back door.
People are leaving out the kitchen.
Yeah, like they don't trust you. They don't. Yeah. Agreed. Well, this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank
as
you
I
so
expected.
much for having me.
Yeah. Where can folks find you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure there's one other Jenn Grabenstetter.
Oh.
She's like a married to a cousin. She's a doctor, so not the doctor. But I think I am like the one with like the username like j.grabenstetter or Jenn Grabenstetter. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I do kind of try to write stuff from time to time.
Yeah.
And sometimes
She's
you can
good at writing.
find me on stage occasionally.
Yes.
I like to perform.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The show that goes wrong.
Play that goes wrong.
Play that goes wrong. Yeah. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks for coming to see
I
it.
was there on the week after opening week.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. So.
Yeah. So support local community arts, please. Charlotte especially needs more people pouring into our artists and our arts community. So
yeah,
do that. Find me there. See you there.
Cool. And folks, you can find me online, drewburdick.com, and at Drew H. Burdick on pretty much every social platform. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you.